after a couple of years, I thought, okay, yes, I can start making a good income from this, earning maybe a couple of $1,000 from, my spoon flour or a couple of licenses. And then I kind of then went all in. I didn't get rid of all my IT stuff. I kind of kept doing some of that on the side and then did half and half, I guess. And slowly over time it built up. And I reckon it was 5 years before I could actually say, or when I decided I could get rid of the IT work and actually solely just do my illustration and surface pattern design.
Welcome. I am so excited today to be joined by Mel Armstrong. Mel is an illustrator, a surface designer, and an educator. She is based in New Zealand, and throughout her career, she has illustrated children's books, designed fabric, stationery, kids' products, puzzles, all kinds of awesome stuff. She's also had a lot of success with art licensing, and I know that that is a topic that we are all so interested in. I'm very happy to have her today to learn more about a career. So welcome, Mel.
Oh, thank you for having me, Elizabeth. It's really great to be here. I'm looking forward to chatting.
Yeah, me too. I love doing these because it's actually been a while since I've done an interview, just because scheduling, and I love to connect with other artists, so I'm excited to learn more about you. Just to kind of get the lay of the land, will you give me, you've had such a awesome range of experience in your artistic career. Can you give a brief overview of what brought you into sort of surface design and illustration?
Mm.
And how'd you
Yeah.
find this career?
Yeah, it was kind of accidental. Um, it started around 12 years ago, and I was heavily pregnant at the time, and I was about to go on maternity leave. When I say maternity leave, I actually worked for myself anyway as a software engineer. So I
Oh, wow.
freelanced in Sydney, Australia, for a number of clients, and I kind of was getting to this point where I was feeling quite, you know, over that industry. I was working in the software industry and it was a bit crazy, but I was trying to find fabric to make some clothes for my son. Oh, I didn't know it was a boy at that time. I was just looking for gender neutral type of fabric that I could create because I love to sew. So I wanted to find some fabric and I couldn't find anything I liked. And so I went back home and I'm like, I have skills in Photoshop. I knew software like Illustrator through my work. So I Googled how can you create your own fabric? And
Amazing.
I came across spoon flour and I was like, oh, this looks good. And then so I went about educating myself and learning how to create patterns. And that's pretty much where it started. And it just kind of grew from there. Yeah, quite quickly, I guess.
That's amazing. So I love to hear about a big career pivot. That's really interesting. And did you have any, I mean, you must have had some sort of like like were you creative as a kid or something like, because you don't just go for, I mean, like, oh, I knew what Illustrator was, so now I'm going to design fabrics. Like, did you have some sort of artistic, inclinations before that, or were you
Yeah.
really just like all, software and numbers and
No, I like as a kid, I was a doodler. Like my school workbooks were covered in doodles. I've always loved to draw. It never crossed my mind that I could make a career out of it. I'd never had any formal training,
Hmm.
other than I did a graphic design course, diploma, as part of my IT work because I designed a lot of the front end of applications and software. So I like to make them pretty. So I did some graphic design, courses to help me with that. So I had a little bit of, knowledge, but not a huge amount. And I just used my love of drawing and that knowledge that I already had and put it together and grew it from there. Yeah.
Wow. So you started designing for spoon flour for
Mm.
yourself, and then like give me like I mean, I think I'm going to dive in a little bit deeper, but then that led to what you deciding to build more on spoon flour and realizing that other people were interested in your designs, I'm presuming. Um,
Yeah. I think at the beginning, so the first couple of years, I was still doing my freelance IT work. as well as bringing up a son. I had a baby. So it was, juggling that. And then I had another baby after that. But I was dabbling away at the pattern design stuff and posting on Spoonflower. I was starting to get in the top 10 of challenges. And I then, I think it was a couple of years in, I submitted a design to the Make It and Design people. And I won a
Yeah, yeah.
scholarship to do their course.
Oh, wow.
So I spent the next sort of 12 to 18 months doing that. And I think that really kind of set the sort of that's kind of when I went, oh yes, I could make a career out of this because
Gotcha.
that's when people started finding my work on Spoonflower or on Instagram and reaching out to me and saying, can I license it?
Oh my goodness.
And which was kind of scary because I had no idea at that point, like what to do. And I think my first licensing contract was a shop, not a shop, a shoe manufacturer in Australia. And they were like, oh, so what are your fees and what are you, what is your process? And I'm like, oh, I don't
I
know.
don't have
I
one.
don't have
Yeah.
one. But of course, I kind of faked it. I was like, oh, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
I'll just, do this and do that. And it sort of kind of happened with lots of mistakes. And
Right,
yeah.
right. Um, okay, so I love this. So it was sort of more of a like hobby thing that I mean, you enjoy doing it. It was kind of creative
Mm,
outlet. You're doing these challenges, you're having fun. And then because of that, the class, you sort of started to see how it could be a full-time thing. So,
yeah.
I guess, yeah, I want to dig in a little more to some of those early years because I know one thing that as you're a teacher of new designers, I'm a teacher of new
Mm,
designers, and one thing that I think that we're probably both coming up against when we see students is a lot of students think that, this is a career that they can sort of jump as soon as they learn to put things into repeat.
mm,
Um, you know, in a year they can build this career. And I have done surveys before of successful artists and also just, talked to lots of artists like in these kind of settings and things. And I know my own experience and I just know that it, often takes 3, 4, 5 years to build up a full-time income, if not sometimes more,
yeah.
depending on where your skill level is when you're starting, right?
Mm,
Talk to me about like, building up. So once you decided like, or once you realized that this could be a way to make money and you were starting to get those initial inquiries and now you're thinking, wait a second, this, hey, I'm about to get a paycheck for this. Where was like your mind besides the overwhelm as far as, shifting away from software design and into an income that was based on your art?
yeah, it took a lot of years, to be honest. And I get a lot of emails from people saying, oh, in fact, I got one the other day saying, do you think I could be making 10K in 3 months' time? And I'm like, no.
I couldn't guarantee that I was going to make, from art immediately. If I it was like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
sorry.
No, it took many, many years. And I kind of, to be honest, probably after a couple of years, I thought, okay, yes, I can start making a good income from this. And this is after a couple of years of just earning maybe a couple of $1,000s from, my Spoonflower or a couple of licenses. And then I kind of then went all in. I didn't get rid of all my IT stuff. I kind of kept doing some of that on the side and then did half and half, I guess. And slowly over time it built up. And I reckon it was 5 years before I could actually say, or when I decided I could get rid of the IT work and actually solely just do my illustration and surface pattern design. And it wasn't just surface pattern design. I really had to diversify my income.
Mm.
So I got into children's picture books as well. I did the print on demand and I did licensing. So there was a lot of things happening that were building up that income. I don't think you could just rely on licensing or just rely on print on demand. I know for some people they can, if they put their all into it, but for me, I had to diversify in order to make that income. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, from my experience, so I worked for 10 years. I studied surface pattern design, just for your information. I studied surface pattern design in college. And so I was able to graduate and immediately start working in the industry. I worked for a bedding company, I worked for a home decor company, and I worked for a apparel company over the course of 10 years as a staff textile designer. But when I went freelance, well, first of all, I thought it was going to be like no problem. I was just going from one job, one staff job to like, I'm going to get two or three clients. I'll just have those three clients and then, whatever, I'll just have this money that's coming in and it'll be fine. Um, Spoiler alert, it was not that easy, but
Yeah.
but I was lucky because I had contacts, and I had 10 years of experience. And so, I had all these things, but even still, it definitely took me time. I started my first year freelancing, and I mean, it depends on what you consider a full-time income, but I would say that my entry level income when I graduated college in 2003. I was working in New York City, so it was a decent income for entry level compared to other parts of my country and whatever. But I made more than $10,000 less my first year freelancing, but it still technically could be an entry level depending on what your expenses were. So I was lucky that I was making some money, but especially after working 10 years in house, it was a major pay cut, and it took me so long to build up. I was very, very steadily like a
Mm.
couple extra thousand each year. So, yeah, it's a really long road sometimes
Yeah.
to build up, even if you have that experience. So making that making that jump from a totally different industry can be really tricky. I love that, you're talking about diversifying your income right up front. I have some different questions about all of those things, honestly, but I guess let's dig into art licensing because that's obviously something that people are very interested in. Um, from your print on demand shop, that's where you were starting to get requests.
Yeah.
Do you have an art licensing agent at this point? Did you ever have an art licensing agent? What's been your experience with art licensing versus some of your other income streams?
Yeah, so I had an agent up until last year, where I decided to go out on my own, and it's been a year now since, or just over a year since I have left my
And
agent.
how long were you with that agent before?
Oh, I reckon 7 to 8 years.
Okay, wow,
So
yeah.
the one agent, and they really helped me in the beginning, um, work out how to license basically. And they had contacts, so
Mhm.
it was a wonderful way to build up that licensing sort of portfolio and start getting royalties. And yeah, and also learning about contracts and licenses and stuff like that. So definitely that for me, if I didn't have that back in the beginning, I probably wouldn't be able to do it now because
Mm.
they gave me those skills. Um, and now I can just reach out to clients on my own and find my own licenses. But I find a lot of people also just come to me, and I don't know where they find me other than a lot of the time it's Spoonflower or Instagram, that a lot of people reach out to me as instead of me actually trying to pitch to people.
Hey,
So
that's where we all want to be.
yeah, yeah, and I think that's pretty good because and I think that's just from building up
Yeah,
that licensing portfolio over time and yeah, having
yeah.
my stuff out there and other companies seeing it out there. So yeah.
I love that. So again, I agree. I had a licensing agent for 10 years and just left them in the fall. So it's only been about 6 months. Well, no, I guess 6, 7, 8, 9 months. What is time, right? It's already June. So
Yeah.
um so yeah, but the same, I hadn't really, I learned so much from working with them, and I know that that's something that, a lot of artists want. I hear so many students, I just need to get an
Mm.
art licensing agent. I just want an agent. I want an agent. Um, I'm curious what your I'm curious what you tell students that probably are asking you the same questions. Because for me, it's like it was a great experience, but also I like to remind people like it's not a golden ticket. It's not like the second you
Mm.
have an agent, okay, like here's 40, you know, deals and it's all easy peasy from here on out. All you have to do is just draw in your studio all day.
Yeah.
So I'm curious what your experience was like because I know everyone's agency is so different.
Yeah, mine was quite a big agency, but in the beginning, not a lot was happening. It took maybe a couple of years to
Mhm.
actually get consistent work through them. So definitely it was very slow in the beginning, and I was like, oh, is this the right thing? But eventually I just persisted and stuck with it, and it built up. And they would send you briefs to try and help build your portfolio, which was good. Um, they would give us, give me a lot of feedback and help me kind of fine tune stuff that wasn't quite right. So it was all good for that sort of thing. When I tell students, I kind of think about both the pros and the cons, and there are many. And the pros are that they have all these contacts that you don't have, so your stuff's going to be put in front of those contacts. But then it's not just you that's been put in front of them, it's all
Mm,
the others in the agency as well. So
right.
you're still competing with those other artists in the agency. So there's that as well. Also, they take a big commission, which now I don't have to worry about. um, but you just got to take those pros and cons, and you don't have to stay with an agency forever. So you can just stay there for a couple of years and find your way. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I've heard just like the good and the bad, right? Like some people are,
Mm.
over the moon about their agencies, and some people are like, oh, that was, it was a bad relationship, and oh gosh, I'm still dealing with the fallout of it.
Yeah.
It is such a real partnership that you just, and even from the same agencies, I've heard people have like had a great experience with one agent and then a different person who did not have a good experience with that one agent or whatever. So it's not even, it's
Absolutely.
really just, personalities and what you need as an artist and what they can offer as
Mm.
an agency. So,
Absolutely. And I think I might actually go back to another agent at some point. I just think it
mm,
will be a smaller agency that I
yeah,
can have more of a sort of relationship with one agent that I can work with rather than working with a bunch of agents in the
right.
agency.
I hear what you're
Yeah.
saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have your artwork out there and people are coming to you for licensing
Mhm.
opportunities. And you're saying that you think probably they're finding you from Instagram and Spoonflower. So you don't have any necessarily like specific marketing things. It's just that you've been out here sharing your work and putting it out there. Would you have any thoughts about, attracting, because I'm sure people are like, I would
Mm.
love to just have people coming to me. And it's like, I
Yeah.
always like you have to start pitching, but also put your work
Mm.
out there. So I'm curious if,
Yeah.
you have any thoughts about that.
Yeah, I think for me, my biggest sort of client magnet, I guess, is Spoonflower. Like I sell a lot on Spoonflower, but not a huge amount. Like it wouldn't pay my mortgage. But the clients that come to me often find me there, and then I will create a relationship with them that I can sustain over a long period of time. So I've got a fabric company that I work for that I'm constantly creating collections for and constantly licensing more and more and more. And then there's royalties with that as well. So they just keep compounding as well.
Well, that's awesome.
But as long as I keep that relationship going, then that's a really nice income from me. And, they found me on Spoonflower. So that's just one client that, contributes to my income quite nicely. And then, I get all these other ones from there. I think Instagram as well has always been a really good place for clients to find me. And they're generally the smaller boutique type clients who have little businesses, maybe on Etsy or that kind of thing. And then what else have I done? I don't do a lot of marketing. I do Pinterest when I think about it. I do Instagram, obviously. Other than that, I occasionally will pitch to companies if I do have a very large list of um, dream clients, and
Mhm.
every now and then I will send out some pitches to them, and most of the time I get rejected. Sometimes I'll get Yes, okay, great. Would love to work with you. But, 9 times out of 10, it's no, thank you. But
And
then
that's
I
a
just think,
totally normal thing. That I want to just like
yeah.
pause there because like I
Mm.
mean you're saying it just normally, which and I also know it's a totally normal thing, but just for
Mm.
people who are like, "Oh, this is why I don't want to pitch." It is totally normal, right? And like we
Yeah.
just you just take you're just like, "All right, cool. I'm onward," you know?
Yeah, and
That's just
sometimes
part
it's
of the
just
game.
not the right timing. And so I've gone back to some of those clients and then they have gone, yep, okay, I'd love to work with you now. Like just sometimes it's the timing, or maybe it's just not the right fit, or maybe it could be any reason. It might not be that they don't like your design. So I just think, don't take it to heart if you get rejected.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's so important. Um, I want to ask, I'm going a little off script here, but I want to ask a little more about Spoonflower because, so like, I don't have a Spoonflower shop. I don't really know that. I mean, obviously, I've heard a lot about Spoonflower. I know a lot of people who are
Mhm.
on Spoonflower, but my question is like, sort of my impression from people who get licensing work from Spoonflower is it is a lot of like, very smaller businesses, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? Small businesses can be a great, obviously be a great source of income, but like small makers, right? Or someone who are doing, yeah, like maybe not necessarily going to end up in like big box stores. Is that what you found? Or have you, I mean, because even you're saying you have, gotten a fabric license through it. And if you're doing multiple collections, then I'm assuming it's a relatively big fabric company. So, I'm just curious about kind of like I know people have, I don't know, I'm just curious about the type of clients you're getting from Spoonflower licenses.
Yeah, it's a real mix. So I've had a lot of small companies, businesses, and a lot of them are repeat as well. They'll keep coming back for
That's
more,
great.
which is nice. And then obviously I've had a few large companies reach out to me. I've done recently, I just did a big wall panel in a shopping mall for someone who found my work on Spoonflower. And then fabric companies. I worked for a big company in Australia who do pet products. They found me on Spoonflower. But yeah, there's a mix
The
of,
mix.
yeah,
Okay.
real mix, yeah.
Interesting.
And also like I was found by a publisher on Spoonflower many years ago who liked a design and wanted me to create illustrator picture book. And that's how my I got into picture
Perfect. Well,
books.
that's a good segue
Yeah.
because I'm curious about that as well, because,
Yeah.
that's another avenue that I have no experience in. And I know so many people who, yeah, are kind of straddling the line. They like the idea of surface design and art for products, but also picture book. I mean, if you're an illustrator and
Mhm.
you love to draw cute things, picture books is a natural extension. Actually, when I was young, that was what I always thought I was going to. I didn't know about surface design, and I always thought I was going to be a author illustrator. That was my thing. So t is that how? Tell me a little bit more how you got into that, because to me, it's like people are like, oh, you should. Have you ever thought about doing picture books? And I'm like, that's a whole different like portfolio. Like that's something so
Mhm.
different. Like, yes, I can illustrate, but I would have to draw so many new different types of things to show off my skill set because what I have now isn't picture book ready. So talk to me about that kind of how you balance
Yeah.
those two.
It was one of my sort of dreams as well, like to get into that. And I didn't really know or have a clue on how to do it. And then this publisher reached out to me via my agent um, after they'd seen this pattern on Spoonflower and asked if I wanted to do a picture book. And I had no idea. I was just like, I really want to do this, but I have no idea what to do it, how to do it. But I dived in. They have a lot of publishers will have a book designer who will work with you. And so they were an independent publisher and they basically helped me through the whole process, which was incredible.
That
And
is.
the book ended up winning an award, which was incredible.
Oh,
So that was amazing for my first book, and I just yeah got the love of it from that, and decided I'll do it. And I've done a couple of courses now, so I kind of know what I'm doing a bit better. It's such a long process, but it's and it's very different to pattern design. Like I can whip up a collection in a few days, but a
Yeah.
book it takes months.
I
So
know. That's
it's
what
a
I'm
long
like. Oh,
process.
it's too much.
Yeah. But there's so many stages to it that it never gets boring and it's really fun to watch, it all kind of materialize and develop into a book. Just from, nothing at the beginning when you're kind of like, how am I going to do this? And then it sort of grows over those months into a book and it's really rewarding to watch and do, I think. So
Yeah.
yeah, I've been lucky to do that.
So then after that first book, because it was successful, and does your agent also, or your previous agent, were they also like in publishing as well,
Yeah,
not just
they did
licensing?
both, so that made it easier as well.
Gotcha.
I don't
So
think at
then,
that point, if I had pitched to a publisher, without anything behind me, I don't think I would have been able to get my foot in the door there. But because I was with the agent, I had a lot of support, and it was a great way in.
yeah, and so then they can make more further connections off the strength
Mm,
of your
yeah.
initial launch. That's awesome. And so that's something that you still do. That's
Mhm.
another consistent part of your income. So we've got art licensing, we've got children's book illustration, and then correct me if I'm wrong, there might be more, oh, print on demand, right? And then
Yeah.
the sort of fourth piece of the pie is teaching and education.
Mhm.
Are there any other pieces of the pie that I'm missing, first of all, like
No,
major?
that's pretty much it.
Okay, I mean, that's
That
plenty,
keeps
don't
me
get
pretty
me
busy.
wrong. So let's talk a little bit about the teaching. So how long into your creative career before you started to teach, or when did you kind of have the interest in like getting into teaching, um, putting that with the art side of your business?
It was probably about 5 years in, and I was taking classes on Skillshare at the time, and Skillshare reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to teach, and I just went, no, not doing it. It petrified me, like I was scared to do it. But they kept asking, and eventually I said, okay, I'll give it a go. And when I did work in IT, I actually used to teach some, executives and companies and stuff how to use software and stuff. So I'd had a bit of teaching experience, I guess, in that respect. And I was kind of the go-to in some of the companies that I worked for to, help educate people on these applications. So I knew I could do it, but I was kind of really scared to do it. So anyway, I did a teacher challenge with Skillshare, and I ended up winning the challenge, which got my class out. And just it went a bit viral on their social media and stuff. So I ended up getting a lot of students, and yeah, then it just sort of took off from there. And I think also I get a lot of emails from people wanting to know how to do this and that and how I did that. And I'm like, instead of just writing all these emails back, let's just put it all together into a course and,
Hmm.
I can put it out there to answer all these questions. So pretty much every class I do is answering someone's question. And I think, yeah, I think that's kind of what's made it work for me is that I'm just trying to help others where I stumbled a lot at the beginning and I'm trying to make it easier for them to make a career like this because it is a rewarding career and yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. Before you, when you were telling that story, because you were like, Skillshare reached out to me, and I was like, I'm sensing a pattern of like people reaching out and you just, saying yes, even. And then you were like, and I said, nope. Like, okay, no, I'm not sensing a pattern. But it's funny, yeah, because, but they badgered you into it. So, it seems like I love that these, things came to you and you took the risk even if you at first were like no thank you.
Yeah.
Took the risk to do something different, and how it's obviously you're very talented because it continued to work out for you with the books and the Skillshare classes and everything like that. um so I'm maybe this doesn't, I mean, we talked about this a little bit, but I did want to talk a little bit more about like marketing. How did I'm guessing and hearing now that it was through Skillshare. I'm guessing you built most of your audience for teaching through Skillshare. Do you still have a lot of courses on Skillshare? I know you do have you have courses
Mm.
on your own, like bigger courses on your own website, but talk to me about kind of building your audience and marketing your courses.
Yeah, I have found YouTube to be my favorite place now to build my audience. A lot of people find me on YouTube and then find my Skillshare courses or my own courses. I also love teaching on YouTube just for the fact that I can reach people who can't afford those courses because,
Hmm.
they're expensive. And I also get a little bit of money from YouTube to do it. So
Awesome.
it's great to be able to provide that to people out there who don't want to sign up for a subscription or a big course. But it's also benefited me in that it's um, driven traffic to my Skillshare or to my own platform as well. So that's kind of where my focus is at the moment because I just like the mix of being able to give the free content, but also being able to drive the audiences to my courses as well. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, so it goes both ways, I guess, with,
YouTube. Yeah.
yeah,
So I guess then when it comes to marketing, I mean, it seems like you have a openness to being on a lot of platforms, right? Through Instagram, through Skillshare, through YouTube, I mean, throughout your career, obviously, I'm sure some things were bigger at certain points in your career, but
mm,
basically, it sounds like being willing to put yourself out there and not, sort of hoard your art or hoard your knowledge or your talents or things that has made all the difference because so many
yep,
people, so many opportunities have continued to come to you. Um,
absolutely. And
has
yeah.
would you have any sort of, basically tips for people starting out with
Mm.
marketing? Maybe that's it, and I just stole the answer, but
Yeah.
what as far as people who are just starting out, and are
Mm.
trying to get their work into, have people approach them and things like that, what kind of
Mm.
things have you learned throughout your process?
Yeah. I guess like if I look back, when I did my IT degree at uni, we did marketing and we learned all the stuff about marketing, but absolutely none of that applies today. Like you cannot use any of that. I'm talking about 30 years ago. But today in this world that we live in, online is marketing and you've got to somehow get your stuff seen. So social media is pretty much the only place where people are going to see you online in some respect. I'm not active on every platform. I don't really do TikTok. Like I've tried it, but just kind of not my vibe. I do a little bit on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's been good for finding certain types of clients. Instagram has always been a client magnet for me, so I try to keep up with there, but the algorithm, as we know, is all over the place and it's really
Mhm.
hard now.
Yeah,
It was a lot different before.
yeah, that's what I was going to ask you.
Mm,
Let me just pin and ask like have you found Instagram? I feel like in the last like year. I mean, I guess I put less time into it as well, but I just
yeah.
from other people who do continue to put a lot more time in, it seems like it's still harder to find clients on Instagram. Have you noticed that as well?
Yeah, I think so. And some of the people that reach out to me there now are a bit dodgy.
Mm,
So, and like I'm having to block a lot of people and it's getting really annoying. But
mm,
it's, yeah, definitely not working as well as it used to work. But
mm.
I will still stay on there and I'll still be active. I mean, everyone's hating on Meta as well at the moment.
Right,
And,
yeah.
I feel the same way, but I also feel like it is a good place for me to get clients. So I will stay
Still a
there.
visual, it's still the
Yeah,
number one visual platform, basically, besides, I
yeah,
mean, Pinterest in a different way, but Instagram is
yeah.
still the number one like visual social media, right? I
That's
mean,
right. Yeah. But Pinterest is a very good way as well. I try and be consistent on there. It's more like I don't really call it social media. It's more of a
yeah, it's like
search
a search
engine.
engine,
Yeah.
basically.
So it's also very good for people who have visual, for artists, I guess. But yeah, I definitely Instagram and I have a love-hate relationship, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah, yeah. And I go all in for a few weeks and then I I haven't posted on there for weeks at the moment because I had a big break. I've had a big break because I've been busy with the project, but like I'll just go all in and then I'll stop for months and then I'll go all in and then stop and
Yeah.
that's just the way I do it. And it still works slightly, but yeah, it's definitely kind of not as good as it used to be. But Pinterest and YouTube for me are probably my biggest draw cards at the moment.
Yeah,
And in another couple of years that might change. So
for sure. Yeah.
got to sort of stay on top of it and yeah.
And an experiment, right? I think that's
Yeah.
probably I it can be a heavy lift, I see people because my biggest course is Start Your Surface Pattern Business. I'm teaching people who have done no market. It's really about the like
Mhm.
actual starting to market yourself, starting to get yourself online. Some people who
Mhm.
join the class, don't have a website. I talk about how to build a basic website, like because
Mhm.
that's a very important part, and like
Definitely. Yeah.
so it's like the beginning steps of like getting yourself out there. And some designers, they're introverted artists that love to work and create beautiful things, but they're not trying to put themselves in front of a camera or even, even their art, they don't really want to put out in the world unless it's
Yeah.
going to be on a product that, they're getting paid for. And I get it, especially like, the YouTube aspect of it. I totally would understand why someone wouldn't want to be in front of a camera, and you don't
Mhm.
have to be. But the certainly something like Pinterest and Instagram, getting your art like out into the world, like you do sort of have to do that in order to start reaching people. And at the very, I mean, I say direct pitching, because if you're too scared to put it out in the world, you can at least put it in email to one person, right? Or
Yeah.
multiple
But then
people.
you also need a website to be able
Yes,
to point
exactly.
that.
At the very
Yeah.
least. And people get scared about that. And I just am like, don't worry, you're not getting, it's not like once you publish a website, 100,000 people are going to
No.
go to it, right? Like unless you have some sort of SEO wizardry, like you're no one's no one's gonna see it, right? At first,
Mm.
like until you send them to it, because you're sending, you have to start getting out there. But it can be so overwhelming because you're working on
Mm.
building up your art skills and then also your marketing skills and then these social medias, and depending on
Yeah.
people's tech abilities, it's like, oh, it does feel like so much. So, I feel like it's wherever your energy, you have to try to find one at
Mm.
least that
Yeah.
you can handle, you can stand to be somewhat consistent with for a bit to get your work out there.
Definitely when you're starting out. And even now, like it's a real struggle to find that time to balance everything that I'm doing, plus making videos and and I keep trying to outsource some of my YouTube videos, but can't find someone who's actually kind of, can see my creativity and kind of make it the way I want it.
Mm,
I'm really struggling to find that. And if I can find someone who can do that, then that's going to take, hours out of my week.
yeah.
Um, yeah, but like when you're starting out, you don't need to be making videos and doing all that stuff. Although I actually really enjoy it. Not the being in front of the camera, but I actually really enjoy editing and I just find it a bit of an art form as well. So
Mm.
I actually quite enjoy it. But yeah, I would like to outsource that at some point.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It takes a
Mm.
lot of work, and it
Yeah.
definitely takes away from other things. So it can be hard to, I mean, yeah, like I don't make a lot of new courses. I was never I had like two or three courses on Skillshare, but I wasn't like a top Skillshare teacher. So it wasn't like I have to make a new course every, I know
Mm.
Skillshare, encourages you to consistently make a lot of courses.
Yeah.
But so I wasn't making a lot of courses, but my whole marketing thing has been YouTube as well. And so I've been pretty
Mm.
consistent with YouTube for 5 years. And yeah, it takes a lot of time, even, and I'm not like a master and it's not like I'm doing these high tech shoots or doing any like that much. I hardly have B-roll. Like I don't really do anything fancy, but just like writing the main points of the script, recording it, editing it, getting all the, blurbs and the title and the
Mm.
title card and all that stuff. Even just like the basics of it,
Yeah,
it
it
takes a
takes a
lot
long
of
time.
time.
Even
Yeah.
just setting up the lights and setting up the room, it can take you a whole day.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Um, that's us. That was our little like YouTube YouTube aside. Like, oh my God, it's a lot
Yeah.
of work. All right. Okay, next question, tech talk around actually creating art. Um, can I, before I dive into that, I want to ask a sort of related question. So just talked about your sort of like, pie of four different things that you concentrate on. What would you say is like time wise, do you spend 40% of your week creating art? Do you spend 30%? Do you spend 70%? I don't know. My percent of my week creating art is, I feel like, it depends if I have like a big client project, but I feel like
Yeah.
it's like 35 maybe. How about you?
Yeah.
I'm curious.
It can change for me. I can go weeks where I'm just creating art
Mm,
and not doing much else. And then, like the last couple of weeks, I haven't done much art, but I've been rewriting my course. I'm doing a whole big refresh of it. So I've been concentrating on that, which isn't a lot of art. And so now I'm just craving to get back to it. So it kind of changes. So some weeks it can be 50-50, or it could be 30-70. It really does depend
yeah, I guess that's
on,
true
and
for
I'm
me.
about to also start another book. So I know that the next 3 months is going to be just art, art, art for that. So, and not much else. So, yeah, it really does
It's all over the
differ.
place. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
I
hard
guess
to really say what it is.
that's fair. There are weeks when
Mm.
I'm like, yeah, doing a solid book of art. Yeah, I mean, not book, but like solid chunks of
Yeah.
art. But yeah,
And sometimes you just get in that creative zone and you just have to keep going with it, I find. Like I'm just like, oh, I've got all these ideas and I just want to keep, creating that art. And then other weeks I don't have any inspiration at all. So
yeah,
I'm
I
like,
do
okay,
appreciate
admin week.
having options of like, oh, I don't
Yeah.
feel like doing this. I'm gonna go over to this other side of my business. So that is nice.
Yeah.
So what I was about to say was about the creating art is the tools that you use to create art. So Procreate and Photoshop are your biggest, is that true?
Yep.
Um, how did you develop your workflow or, how have you kind of built on that? Because I know when you tell me a little bit about like your art workflow and, how you use those programs and stuff.
Yeah. I think initially I was sort of Illustrator and Photoshop before Procreate came out.
Right.
And then, and I kind of thought, oh, Illustrator is the way to go because I think some of the courses that I was doing way back when I started were all about Illustrator. So
Mm.
I was kind of there, but then I sort of decided that my style, I like a lot of texture and I like the
Mm.
sort of painterly feel. So I sort of concentrated more on Photoshop. And I still managed to get lots of clients that way with my agent. I had one client that I did just Illustrator stuff for, but mostly the others were fine with Photoshop stuff. And then obviously Procreate came along and I discovered that and that sort of took over.
Mm.
So I create a lot of, I do all my sketching in Procreate. I often will color in Procreate and then I will take it into Photoshop to finish it off and compose a pattern, or I will take it into Illustrator sometimes, but mostly Photoshop. Yeah, I really will do the pattern in Procreate only because my patterns are quite complex.
Yeah,
If
and
it,
then especially with how everything gets cut off with Procreate, I feel like I don't think
yeah,
I've ever made a pattern in Procreate because it just is annoying. I
it
feel
is. I'm
personally.
hoping with the future releases, maybe they will make that easier.
Yeah.
But I mean, I still like creating patterns in there. Like if I'm just sitting on the couch in the evening and I'm fiddling around, I'll create a pattern in there. But generally, I like to take it into Photoshop because most of the time my clients need a Photoshop file or an Illustrator file. So I like to make sure that it's finished off in there. And also with the raster with Procreate, I like to create motifs really big and then take them into Photoshop, convert them to smart objects, and then I can play with them without them getting
Hmm.
distorted. Um, so that's kind of my
Oh,
go-to
interesting.
method.
So,
Yeah.
oh wait, this is a new thing for me. I mean, I know what smart objects are, but so there you're taking something large in Procreate and then making it a smart object. Does that it doesn't make it vector, but what you can turn it more and
It
it won't
means that
get
I can, so
distorted?
yeah, so if you're in Procreate or even in Photoshop and you are twisting it or resizing it or doing, manipulating it in any way, it's going to keep getting pixelated.
Right, right, right.
But if you convert that to a smart object in Photoshop, you don't get that. It will retain it in its
Oh.
little container in the smart object, and then you can manipulate it
I
outside of
didn't know
that.
that because I use smart objects for like replacing, like I often use it in like a mock-up or something. So if I have like a mock-up of a greeting card and then I put, I've stretched the art to fit on the front of the greeting card, then I can double click it and put in a different greeting card art and it'll just
Yeah.
put it right in. But I didn't know
Mm.
that. Okay, hot tips from Mel over here. I'm sure if I watched all your videos, I would have known this years ago. So that's on me, but thank you.
That's okay. Yep. No, I
Uh,
find it's really good for preventing that pixelation.
Yeah, no, that is good. I personally love Illustrator, but yeah, there is some once I did Illustrator and Photoshop both. I knew them equally, and when I
Mm.
first started, I was a little more Photoshop and something, but I started going more and more towards Illustrator, and I really do love Illustrator the most, but I also like the ease of doing things on the iPad. And so I got into Procreate as well. I definitely use it for my sketchbook all the time now. And I love some of the textures that I can get there. So I do kind of a mix and match as well. But I don't
Yeah.
usually do sometimes I do patterns in Photoshop from Procreate, but sometimes I do stuff in Procreate and then still bring it into Illustrator. So I'm
Yeah.
all over the place as well. And I
I'm
think
a bit all over the place like that too, because I
that's a lot.
still love Illustrator and I still use it a lot. But yeah, I think Photoshop kind of is my favorite.
It's
Yeah.
hard to choose. Well, and the
Yeah.
thing that's good to know is that, you've been able to have, clients that have no problem working with
Mm.
various types of files. Like, as you said, you had one client that did need Illustrator, but most of the time it hasn't been
Yeah.
a problem. So obviously that's a question that I get all the
Mm.
time still is like,
Yeah.
do I need Illustrator? No, 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 you can do mostly
Yeah.
whatever. I mean, obviously some clients have restrictions, but for the most part, you can do what you need to do.
It
So.
is, yeah, and it is good to know both, I think, because and I've just signed on with a new client and they want to license three designs, but they're all Photoshop designs, but they actually need them as
Mm.
vectors. So I have recreated them and vectorized them basically in Illustrator. And having that knowledge, it was really easy for me to do. I even managed to retain some of the textures, but it's good that I know both and I can do that if I need to, I think.
Right. And I mean I think so too, but it's like
Mm.
something, you have 12 years experience. It's not something you
Yep.
need from the first year or 2 years in
No,
your career, right? It's
no.
like because it will be very overwhelming to try to learn all these
Yeah,
programs and all these tricks, right? Um,
absolutely. I just say stick to one that you think closely matches your style and, really master it and then venture out.
yeah, and then try
Mm.
some new things. I think t tell me what you think about working alone and learning new tricks because I think a lot of your classes and YouTube videos sometimes do technical tutorials. You just taught me something that I didn't know and like when you work alone, you don't get those new tricks. You have your way of doing it. You know how to do it that makes it work, whether it's the best way or the most efficient way. But then, it's like there could be so much easier ways. How do you kind of do you watch a lot of classes? How do you up level your skills or know when there's something cool that you might be missing? I'm just curious because I need this help as well.
I'm a tinkerer, so I like to just play in those apps without really creating things, just to find new ways of doing things.
Mhm.
And I think it goes back to my sort of coding. I'm a very kind of I'm a thinker. Like I'm always trying to think of new ways of doing things, and working out problems. I'm good at solving problems, I think, and I think it all comes from that. But yes, I do watch a lot of tutorials as well, and I watch a lot of tutorials. Not from pattern designers, but from other sort of like Photoshop experts or Illustrator
Mm,
experts. And I often find little gems of things in them that I can then incorporate into my pattern design sort of workflow. And yeah.
I love that. I need to spend more time. And well, now I'm going to do a deep dive into some of your tutorials because clearly I'm going to learn some cool new tricks. But that is awesome. Well, I will definitely be putting all your links in the description. Sounds like tell me about the course that you're currently updating, or yeah, tell me about the course you're currently updating a little bit because probably by the time this comes out, maybe you'll be closer to launching it, or people can get on your newsletter and know when it's relaunched. Give us a little
Yeah,
info on that.
definitely. My signature course is the art and joy of surface pattern design, and I created that almost 3 years ago. Or 3 years ago. So it needs a refresh. So there's some tutorials and stuff in there that are a bit dated because obviously software changes.
Yes, yeah.
But I'm basically re-recording every lesson. There's quite a few lessons in there, and just updating it with all the new stuff that I've learned over the years, and new techniques that I've discovered. Yeah, and a lot of extra things as well. So it's quite a big refresh. It's going to be way better,
Yay.
hopefully.
And
So
so that
yeah,
teaches you how to actually put things. This is that like a technical, how to put things
it
in certain
yeah.
programs, or or how to give me like a little synopsis of what we could learn in there.
It's pretty much covers the business, the creative, and the technical side of service pattern design. So I dive into how to find clients, and I dive into licensing and contracts, and um, how to find your signature style, how to find inspiration. But then I also go into all the technical stuff, and I teach how to create motifs and patterns in both Procreate, Illustrator, and Photoshop. And I don't think
Oh,
any other courses do that. So
one-stop
that's kind of
shop.
unique.
No, no one's
Yeah.
doing all of that. Goodness
But you
gracious.
don't
I'm
have to do
tired
all
just
three. You could just
listening,
pick
Mel.
one.
She's re-recording the whole thing. That sounds like, is it a 17-hour course? Is that?
It's pretty long. I don't actually know the actual, I think it's over 20 hours, but
I believe it with all that.
yeah.
That's
It's also
amazing.
connected to my community as well. So, and the community is, I've just built this beautiful bunch of members that we just do challenges every month, and we support each other. And it's, you sort of, yeah, it's been fantastic, and it's a lovely little place, and to share our thoughts and build our portfolios and stuff. So,
Oh,
yeah.
I love that. That's so
Mm,
important too. I mean, you just need the support. It's a great career, but also, the people make it, doable, like keep your motivation up. And, I have just found that the people in this industry are all just so genuinely lovely.
mm,
And, we're very lucky to be in a place where people tend to be wonderful. And
yeah.
so I really appreciate you joining me today. And like I said, I will have all those links in the description for you guys to check out Mel's work, her Spoonflower Shop, her course. And thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Ready to transform your surface pattern design journey? Discover the power of product category niches with my valuable masterclass, Find Your Focus. Unlock the key to progress by understanding the type of products your art could fit on and choosing the perfect product category to showcase your unique style. Don't let uncertainty and trying to do all the things hold you back. Click the link in the description below to enroll now and find focus today.